If you are like most people, you probably think that once you owe the IRS, that's it, game over. The debt just keeps getting bigger and bigger, growing penalties on top of the tax, and then like a cherry on top, there's that 8% interest compounded daily. And when you get to that point, you feel like you're just about as good as buried. Well, what if I told you that I recently had a client who had thousands of dollars that he owed to the IRS, and I got him a $58,000 refund. In 2025, the IRS actually has real debt relief programs that can make outcomes like that possible, if you know how to qualify. Now, let's talk about how this really works in plain English, because nobody's talking about this. Right now, there's probably 4 main ways, if you want to look at it that way. We'll call them programs that the IRS has to help people get back on track. Notice I had programs help you, not the IRS helps you. Okay, are we good there? Good. So first up, you can make monthly payments through an installment agreement, similar to any other regular monthly bill, like a car payment or a house payment. You might, depending on your financial circumstances, qualify for a hardship status, or what they call currently not collectible status. And technical terms like that don't really matter, but honestly, if you can't afford to make your payments and you need to take a breather to catch your breath, you want to ask the IRS to stop. Press pause on actively pursuing any collections on your tax debt. You can do that. Some people want to apply for the pennies on the dollar program you hear about everywhere. And you know, the IRS has that program. It's called the Offer and Compromise Program. And it lets you settle for less with the IRS for less than what you actually owe. And last, you can actually request a penalty relief, which in certain circumstances can wipe out a huge amount of your late fees. And even those fees are gone, all the interest that was on top of that calculated, those go away too. Together, these programs are referred to as the IRS Fresh Start Program. And they're more available than most people realize. It's not something you learn in school. The problem is, most taxpayers don't even know what they exist. They assume that the IRS only has one collection tool, pay us all now. And the other problem is, by the time they find out about these tax relief programs, it's often after they had their paycheck garnished or their bank account has been hit. By qualifying for one of these programs, you take an exit strategy from the IRS debt. For example, qualifying for an installment plan depends on you presenting your financials to the IRS, which really comes down to this is how much they say you owe, and this is how much you can actually afford to pay each month. All of that has to be presented with supporting documentation in your application. For currently not collectible or hardship status, you have to prove to the IRS that every dollar of your income actually goes towards meeting your necessary living expenses. For an offer and compromise, the IRS looks at a lot more. They look at your income, your assets, even future earning power to determine what they call your RCP, or reasonable collection potential. And putting all of this together is where most people get lost. Here's what I mean. Only 1 out of every 5 offer and compromise applications were approved in 2024. Just over 21% of the applications. In 2023, they had 40%. So yes, tax relief is real, but you need realistic expectations. Anybody that tells you they're going to get you approved with an offer and compromise, no matter what, is lying through their teeth. And you need to be aware of that. Now, let's talk about why your tax debt, well, anybody's tax debt grows so fast. Penalties, and then on top of that, interest. And interest, it's like rust. It never stops growing. If you ignore the letters, interest makes the tax debt grow into like a huge snowball. The failure to file penalty alone can reach 25%, and then you've got the failure to file penalty on top of that. And interest keeps compounding every single day. I've seen it where somebody owed actually $10,000 to the IRS. They did nothing for a few years, and suddenly the balance doubled. Compound interest on tax debt is a silent killer. It never sleeps, and every day you wait, the amount that you owe the IRS continues to grow. And when it gets bad enough, the IRS can and will begin to garnish your wages or levy your bank account. that's meant to get your attention. And when people do start paying attention, finally reach out for help, it's usually after the biggest damage has already been done. So here's the good news. You can stop collections once you submit a formal resolution plan, like an installment plan or an offer in compromise or a currently not collectible request. All of these are valid plans. The IRS has to pause enforcement while they review your case. And once you're in agreement, they can't touch your paycheck anymore or your bank account. That's why it's so important to act before things get out of control. I'm Josh with Best Tax Pro. Let me tell you a story. A client came in, totally deflated, scared, behind on taxes, ready to give up. We reviewed their records, filed their last 6 years of missing returns, and then challenged the penalties and interest. When the dust settled, not only was their tax debt gone, the IRS actually owed them. They walked out of the office with a $58,000 refund. Now, that doesn't happen every day, but it shows what's actually possible when, number one, you take action, and number two, you use the right IRS programs, number three, the right way. One quick myth buster: IRS debt forgiveness. It isn't an official program. What people really mean is the offer and compromise program, where they settle for less than what they actually owe. But if you don't qualify, your best option might be putting yourself into an installment plan or currently not collectible status. The point is, there's always, or almost always, a good way forward. So what's the best move if you're dealing with the IRS with back taxes in 2025? Simple. Take action. Don't ignore the letters. Don't buy into the myths. Match your income, expenses, and assets to the IRS program that actually fits. That's how you stop collections. You can reduce penalties and start getting your life back. If you want help figuring out what you qualify for, visit us at Best Tax Pro. We're always available for representation. We can help you through what the IRS allows, what they don't, how to position yourself for the lowest possible payment, or even stop collections entirely. If this helped you, hit that like button, subscribe, so more people go for IRS relief tips, and check out the next video right here. All right? We'll walk you through the steps that you need to go through before the IRS will consider any type of relief.